All right. Good morning, guys. Running a little behind. I apologize for that. Had one of those things. Live is hard mode. Had to suddenly reboot the whole computer and restart everything right before I went live. So, bear with me just a moment. We're going to be talking about President Ramaphosa's trip to the White House. He got just completely BTFO'd by good old Donald Trump because that was a mess for Ramaphosa. But bear with me just a second. I gotta find. I bookmarked the tabs and do. Where the hell did my bookmarks button go? There. God damn it. I'm sorry, guys. I know dead air. So what happened was good old Donald Trump had the president of South Africa into the White House, and damn it. Well, I guess I'm just going to have to find them as we go. Not ideal, I suppose. Okay. Sorry, guys. Live is hard mode. The camera failed right before the show, and I had to reboot everything. And so, of course, I lost all the tabs and articles that I had open. So we'll do that one, and we're going to need that one. And George Christensen, you're going to be doing the Lord's work this morning, helping us out with some of these articles. It was that Patrick says, at the risk of being offensive, I have a hard time taking a guy with a name like Ramaphosa seriously. I ain't gonna lie. It kind of sounds like something. Kind of sounds like the name of a Star Trek alien. Not Star Wars, because that's not science fiction. That's pure swords and sorcery, fantasy stuff. But okay, so here's what happened. The president of South Africa came to visit at the White House and sat there with a straight face and denied that there is such a thing as a white genocide happening in South Africa. Let's put some stuff in context. You've got lefties, politicians, elected officials, media entities making the claim that there is no white genocide in South Africa. There's an important context to remember here, and something that I've tried to point out all over the place. You hear them talk about how the Israelis are trying to genocide the Palestinians, which, the fact of the matter is, you talk about Palestine, you're talking about Hamas, and their charter of government literally includes the extermination of the Jews. Okay, but it's the Jews that are trying to genocide the Palestinians. And frankly, I don't care what happens there. But the reason I bring that one up is that this shit is going on. One group trying to wipe out another group. Something on the level of the Tutsis and Hutus is happening all over the underdeveloped world. And they just pick and choose the ones that they want to be interested in. And the ones that they want to be interested in are the ones where the U.S. has interests which can be harmed by the Democrats supporting the opposing the opposition side, right? If there is an American strategic, resource, economic, tactical interest, then the Democrat will, without exception, support that thing which causes the most harm to the most people. It is the basic playbook. I've covered this extensively, but the Democrat Party, the left generally, they are Marxists. Marxism is rooted in the principal concept of seizing the means of productions. Okay, there's a reason criminals, there's a reason convicted felons, when they get their right to vote back, vote overwhelmingly Democrat. There's a reason that currently incarcerated people, those that did vote before they were convicted felons, overwhelmingly voted Democrat. Because at the very core of their entire ethos is this concept of seizing the means of production. They actually have a moral preference of taking by force rather than earning. So what's going on in South Africa is you've got the Boers, the white farmers, that own the majority of the farmland, right? Oh, colonizers, shut the fuck up. Okay, they cry and whine about the colonizer this, the colonizer that, and okay, the Boers have been there for 300 years. And let me tell you something that is absolutely vital to know about the complaints about colonizers. This is going to be one of those streams where everything I say is probably going to be twisted and called racist. But there's that great video that's been circulating. You know what? I'm probably going to share that one this morning too, of the black preacher just railing. See if I can find that one. And it's a very damning piece. But and this is going to sound racist, but it is simply the fact of the matter. Everywhere in the world that you have something other than horror and poverty and starvation is where white Western Europeans have colonized and built agriculture, introduced agriculture. That, go ahead and call me all kind of dirty names, but that is the fact of the matter. This video has been circulating all over the internet. Here's the Hodge twins sharing it. Let's see if the Hodge twins can't get me thrown off.
Position. You can train them to be an astrophysicist. You can train them to be a lawyer, but you.
Hold on a second. Like I said, I had to reboot everything, so of course my studio monitor's not connected. And come on. Okay, now I'm waiting for this to connect. Come on, damn it.
Can't train him to understand the world.
I'm gonna have to go wired this time.
He doesn't know.
Oh God. Yep. Live is hard mode. I apologize for the dead air, guys. The technology is kicking my ass this morning. Sorry. Come on.
Black people had Africa, that big old continent over there. They never built one boat that was seaworthy. Not one.
That's not coming through to you guys, is it? Hey, guys, help me out in the live chat there. Are you hearing that? Are you all hearing that correctly, or is it just is it just coming over the microphone from inside the room? Because that's not how that should be working. Danny, yes, what?
There's not one monument.
There. Now I've got it in the studio monitor. You should be hearing it correctly. Y'all let me know if you're hearing it correctly after you catch up to me.
In Africa and all of Africa. I know you're talking about Egypt. Egypt is not Africa.
There's Arabic people up there. Yeah. When you think of Africa, you think sub-Sahara.
Even before the first colonization of white people, black men built nothing. No sewer system. No houses above one level. And none of them made out of stone. All of them made out of grass and wood. And forget about Zimbabwe and South Africa, Nigeria. Look at what y'all have done in Harlem. You can't even hold on to Harlem. There's something wrong with
the way he said, you can't even hold on to Harlem. So, okay. I think we're firing on all cylinders. I've got y'all back in the headphones and the studio monitor here. Okay, cool. And then, so that, I mean, the preacher points out there, we've got, he says y'all can't even hold on to Harlem. Never built a seaworthy vessel. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And that's true. The Native Americans never built a seaworthy vessel. The Black Africans never built a seaworthy vessel. And honestly, outside of white Western Europeans, you didn't have a whole lot of blue water seaworthy vessels anywhere in the world. Right? You go down and look at your Polynesians, and they would build these kind of puddle jumper ships to go from island to island, but that's not something you cross the sea and go and settle in a new land in, right? So then you look at the world and you look at places like South Africa, Zimbabwe, China, Russia, right? You can look everywhere. You can look all over the world, everywhere that it's been tried, where they have done what they're doing now in South Africa, which is to use government policy to confiscate land owned and operated by white farmers or just farmers. Let me clarify real quick. So in Zimbabwe and in South Africa, it's look at this. There are white people and they own land and we're going to take it from them. And in Russia, it happened to be white people, but it was white people taking from white people there. It was just, even white people are vulnerable to the mind virus that is Marxism. And that's what happened in Russia. And then in China, it was Chinese versus Chinese, but it was, look at these wealthy landowners. They have things that we don't have, and we want to have those things. So we're going to take those things from them. In every single instance, every case where the government, on behalf of the people, the poor, right? They like to call them the less fortunate. I like to call them the less adequate. When the Marxist government seizes the means of production from the local producing population and redistributes it to the less adequate, the result is always the same. Famine, starvation, death, millions. This will happen in South Africa. There will be mass famine in South Africa. And you can take this to the bank. The only reason that South Africa is not going to see the millions and millions of dead that we saw with the Chinese collective farms and the Russian collective farms and Zimbabwe, The only reason South Africa is not going to see that level of death is because the United States is going to ship them food aid. And that's a mistake. That is a huge mistake. I mean, I don't want to see people just dying, but the fact is that actions must have consequences. If I had my druthers, we would shut down all immigration, all asylum claims, with the exception of the white South African Boer. We'd bring them over here and we'd put them to work. Right? These are people who run some of the largest, most successful, most productive, large-scale commercial farms in the world outside of the United States. They understand the technology, the equipment, the techniques. They know the management processes. Hell yeah, bring them over here, put them to work. Put them to work. Let's do some farming. Right? Now, in fair, because we have, Aaron Olson says farming is a very complicated and technical skill. Yeah. And something we have going on in America right now that is a huge problem. I don't know how many of you guys, I think it was Yellowstone was a series. I haven't watched it yet, but I saw some outtake clips where they were kind of bringing up the issues that the show deals with. There's a problem. There's an issue in America where you've heard me rail against property taxes on many, many occasions. There's an issue in America, and it's by design, where property taxes, large commercial family-owned farms are dying. They're shrinking. And what's happening is property taxes. It's only a part of the problem, but it is a huge part of the problem, and it's an intentional part of the problem. So property taxes, tax time comes around, and these giant farms, we're talking about ranches and farms that are 1 million acres, hundreds of thousands of acres, right? And the tax man comes around, and they find themselves selling off, 100 acres or 200 acres to pay the taxes this year. And that land gets bought up by some developer that comes in and chops it up into little postage stamps and puts cracker box houses on it, little shit stacks, right? These garbage row house, row mansion, cookie cutter bullshit. And those farms are shrinking and shrinking. So, y'all, you want to talk about make America great again? Let's grab up all the Boers. Let's end farm subsidy and end property taxes. We'll be cranking out so much food and making so much profit. It'll blow your mind. It's guaranteed. If you're leaving the other corporate taxes in place, the other taxes that the farmers have to pay, and you get rid of the property taxes so their farms don't shrink year over year, they're going to be producing so much food, and it's kind of like working the Laffer curve, right? The more you lower taxes, the more you increase revenue. Imagine what would happen in an America where homeowners didn't have to rent their property from their governments. Right? So back to this thing with President Ramaphosa. The Donald, man, he just let him have it.
There's no white genocide in South Africa.
Well, I can answer that for President. It's, for him, no, seriously, I can answer that.
So they asked the question. Listen to the question again.
For you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa.
Okay, that's not a question. That's absurd. What would it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa? She is making the assertion with that question. This is a common tactic of these lefty shills. She's making the assertion that there is no white genocide, and then in the same sentence accusing Donald Trump of being unreasonable for suggesting that there is a white genocide by inferring that he will not accept any evidence to the contrary. Now, it is difficult and almost impossible to prove a negative. Fair play. However, one can in fact prove that something is positively true. In the case of South Africa, there are specific laws. The government of South Africa has explicitly crafted law which is used to expropriate land from white farmers without compensation. And of course, there's this.
Kill him, man! This
is one of the dominant political parties in South Africa.
Where were you when I'm treated? Where were you when I'm dreamt? So for sketchy, emoye, so for sketchy, etati alliance.
Let's get
Shoot to kill.
There it is.
Yamaza. Shoot to kill. Yamaza.
Shoot to kill.
The poor.
Shoot the
farmer.
Shoot the farmer.
Kill the poor. The farmer.
Kill the boer. Kill the farmer.
Pa. 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 Pa.
Okay. What? Kill the boer. The boer. So if you guys hadn't picked this up already, the boer, B-O-E-R, the boer are the white farmers. This is one of the principal political parties in South Africa, and there he is, just saying, "Do it, get out there, shoot, kill, kill the boer, kill the farmer." I had another one pulled up before. Damn, I lost it. Where he's explaining it directly. But now you've got CNN and the like that run and cover for these guys. Listen.
People who don't have a historical. Larry, has been debate over that song, that anti-apartheid chant, right? And for people who don't have a
At anti-apartheid chant. Oh, it's anti-racist. It's anti-apartheid. How long has apartheid been over? God, I hate having to pull all this stuff up on the fly as I go. Live is hard mode, 1994. So, what is that? 31 years, right? We're 30 some years past apartheid. It's over. It's gone. Well, this is anti-apartheid. Okay, so you don't like apartheid? Well, we ended it, right? You know, we were having dinner one night. This was a couple of years ago. My little man Michael, he is a meat eating fool, right? He went fishing with my dad and my father-in-law the other day, and after they went fishing, he wanted to go. They said, "Hey, what do you want to do for lunch?" And Michael, who's 9, about to be 10, said, "Let's go to Longhorn." And they went to Longhorn, and he ordered the biggest damn steak on the menu, right? I mean, a meat-eating fool, my little boy. And God, I love it. In fact, one time, caught him. We were having like it was a big bone-in roast of some kind, and this was when Michael was about 3 or 4. He had climbed up on the table. We're all getting everything together, getting the table set. Dinner's laid out on the table at Mom and Dad's house. We're about to sit down with the big family dinner. And I come in the dining room carrying a stack of plates to sit down. And here's my 3-4-year-old little boy sitting up on the table, and he's picked up the roast and is just eating it off the bone. That's my little man, right? And for some reason, for a while, he would not eat damn mashed potatoes. He just didn't like them. I don't know why. He didn't, right? And so, one night there were mashed potatoes on the plate, and he started pitching a fit about it. He didn't want the mashed potatoes, and I reached over with my spoon, and it's a little kid's plate. I reached over with my fork, and I scooped up the whole wad of mashed potatoes and ate it in one bite. And he kept bitching about the mashed potatoes. They're gone. There are no more mashed potatoes. I ate the fucking potatoes. Apartheid has been over for 40 years. Shut your slavering cake holes. You got the thing. Right? Just like racism has not been a legitimate political issue in the United States since the passing of the Civil Rights Act, until we started actively crafting anti-white racist laws like affirmative action, until we had government institutions and academia actively crafting anti-white policies, racism was dead. And now it's the only thing that the lefties want to talk about. They can't talk about building a business, buying a house, teaching a kid what compound interest is. No. This is that Ibram X. Kendi, the only answer to historic racism is affirmative racism. You can only solve the history of racism with more racism. Right? That is how he defines what they call anti-racism. And then we're told it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be anti-racist. Well, what does it mean to be anti-racist? It means prostrating yourself. It means self-flagellation. It means going to a marching line of BLM protesters and literally licking boots. No. Hell no. Like, I'm not interested in going and wiping out anybody personally, but what I'm expected to just defer? Negative. That's not an option. But listen to this just nattering. Trying to hold it together on some of the language here, guys. Struggling a little bit with some of the language here.
Historical context, it does potentially appear more literal. Talk to us about the debate that has happened inside of South Africa with the recognition of how it appears to people when they hear those words.
Okay, and this here, let me shut the camera off for a second. You see this headline down here says South African press challenges Trump's genocide claims, says most murder victims in his country are black, not white. That is a cute, clever little piece of mental gymnastics right there. He says most murder victims in his country are black, not white. Okay, we are talking about a country that is majority black, like vast majority black, and is also one of the highest crime rate nations in the world. Right, somewhere top 5. And if you speak to people who live in South Africa, right, we've heard anecdotal stories. Oh no, it's not that bad. We've lived there for 40 years, and we only get carjacked 3 or 4 times a year. It's not that bad. Whoa. I was unhappy with the crime rate in Conyers, Georgia, from where we moved away, because my truck got broken into once in the smattering of about 20 years that I spent living there. St. Michael points out, and I was going to mention that, St. Michael says these are the same people that have no problem believing there is a trans genocide. Okay, that's a great point that I was about to get back to. So it's kind of where I was going with the whole thing about the Jews and the Palestinians earlier. You hear genocide all the time. There's a trans genocide. There's this, there's that. And when they say transgenocide, like, you can't point to an organized group of people that's out there just randomly murdering trannies. When they say transgenocide, they're talking about, oh, well, you won't taxpayer fund my gender transition surgery because you want us all to not exist. You're trying to make us go. You know what? If you're a grown ass man or woman that wants to cosmetically transition yourself to look like a grown ass Frankenstein's monster, honestly, I don't care. Do it on your own dime. You want to go and get an addictomy or a cockectomy? You pay for it. And you pay cash. That shouldn't be covered by insurance because that affects me. If your insurance policy covers that surgery, that affects me. That increases the cost of my health insurance, healthcare. So no, you pay for it yourself. Do what you want. Right. But the transgenocide, okay, if that is a genocide, then the fact that there is a government who has policies explicitly permitting the expropriation of land from one group of people, and the result is that roaming gangs are going and murdering the farmers. And so here's what happens. The gangs go and murder the farmers and their families, right? Now, the people who own the land are dead and gone, including this, and they're murdering the whole family so that there's not even the next generation to receive it in the will and probate, right? And so so then the government just says, oh, well, nobody owns this farm anymore. We're going to give it to you. You're black. Have a farm. Right? So the government is pushing these policies that, and let me reiterate, these are not policies that somebody is currently lobbying to get in place. These policies are the current active, ratified law of the land in South Africa. Right? There's no argument going on as to whether or not they should implement these policies. That is a foregone conclusion. It is done. The policies are in place. This has been going on for some time. Right? So, but then you get they have this misleading headline. And like I said, it is a majority black country with an outrageously high murder rate and an outrageously high rate of violent crime. It is one of the delightful little pet names for South Africa. It is the infant rape capital of the world. Just marinate with that for a moment. So where it says most murder victims in his country are black, not white. Okay. Yeah. The majority of the people in your country are black, and you have one of the highest murder rates in the world. But two things can be true at the same time. The government is actively promoting the murder of white people, and your violent sociopathic countrymen also happen to be murdering one another. Right? Just because, okay, there are more black murder victims than white murder victims. Yeah, but 80% of the murdered farmers are white people. Right? So your numbers are a joke. Lies, damn lies, and statistics, facts, figures are facts, but liars like figures.
It is an inflammatory song, without a doubt. And many in South Africa, even Black South Africans, don't think it should be sung in a post-apartheid world, 30 years plus after apartheid. But there are many who grew up under those years of white minority rule who understand the historical context of this song, Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer, that Julius Malema has made popular again. It sort of fell into disuse. It's not been that commonly sung after the end of apartheid in 1994, but it's brought it back again to reanimate the issue of the majority of land in South Africa still being owned by white farmers.
Larry has been.
Okay, so what? It's okay because there was apartheid. Okay. Aaron Olson asks, were there less murders during apartheid? Oh, actually, yes. Do with that what you will. But one of the first key principal differences in South Africa following apartheid was the dramatic spike in crime. And the crime rate in South Africa has steadily climbed since apartheid. I'm not defending apartheid, but the numbers tell us that the alternative has not been especially good for them. I think the correct answer there is that there needed to be an alternative to apartheid, and they chose poorly. I don't know what the other alternative should have been, but we can see by the numbers that what they did was not the correct answer. St. Michael says, yeah, before the end of apartheid, South Africa was the safest nation on the continent. It was a tourist destination. I used to have a buddy who was he was a South African Jew. He was in the army in South Africa during apartheid. And boy, he had some stories that I will not repeat on this side of the paywall. But we had some very interesting conversations about this. Like, I mean, I'm talking, we were talking about this back in like 2003, 2004. So apartheid, I knew Morris and we were talking about how things had changed since apartheid, less than 10 years after the end of apartheid, right? So a little over 20 years ago, we were having these conversations when it was very fresh, and there were already serious problems with white people basically just being hunted in South Africa. So this is a problem that's been going on for a while. And it's one of the only places in the world where there's legitimately a targeted group. I didn't say the only, right? But where there's legitimately a group that is being targeted for execution. And like, for example, for the counter example, Israel and Palestine. You've got two groups at war with one another, both of whom continue to antagonize one another, or at least to feign antagonism. They are actively engaged in war with one another, right? And we keep hearing, oh well, the Jews are trying to genocide the Palestinians. Like, whatever. No, they're at war with one another. Right. What you have in South Africa is old man's trying to till a field and plant some corn when an ape gang comes with AKs and puts him into his own dirt so that they can steal it. It really is that simple, guys. All right. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it right there. Thanks for watching this morning, guys. Y'all be safe out there. Tomorrow is Firearms Friday. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow.